Welcome to the foundation of the National Lipid Association's podcast, The Lipid Lens. I'm your host, Dr. Marlys Koschinsky, and the purpose of our podcast is to bring lipid health into focus, one conversation at a time. If you've joined us before, we're very happy that you're back. And if you're new here, thank you very much for tuning in. In this session, we will continue our conversations regarding lipid health, and in doing so, we are excited to have new guests joining us. Our goal with this podcast series is to create a community where people affected by lipid disorders, whether it be patients, families, or caregivers, can access trusted information and share personal stories that both inspire and provide support to others. Whether you're a clinician, a researcher, a patient trying to make sense of your lab results, or just someone who's curious about what's really going on inside your arteries, you found the right place. This show is for you. Each episode, we will sit down with people who bring the science of lipidology to life. And we're going to make it feel like a conversation, not a lecture. Because the best insights shouldn't be locked away in journal articles or conference halls. They should be accessible, enjoyable, and relevant to patients, families, and caregivers. So I'm very excited to introduce today's episode in relating to adults living with FCS, which stands for Familial Chylomicronemia Syndrome, and sharing insights from the patient's perspectives as well as from that of their caregivers. So it's a real pleasure to introduce our guests tonight. They include Julie Klueckman. Thank you, Julie, for joining us. Julie is a person living with FCS, and she is joined by her wonderful husband and caregiver, Gary Klueckman. Thank you, Gary, for joining us. Today, we'll hear them discuss their real experiences, share honest moments, challenges, the surprises, and what life with FCS has truly been like from the patient and caregiver perspectives. So welcome, everyone. We're totally thrilled to have you here with us today. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Julie and her husband. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's really, really great to be here. We're very excited to be a part of this.
Absolutely. It's always nice to get the word out.
Yes. When I think back to the years before my diagnosis, one of the biggest things about it was just feeling so alone. Just years spent thinking, is there anyone else out there that's going through what we're going through? And it's just nice to know that you're not alone. No matter where you are in your journey and what part of your
Absolutely.
journey you're on, there's people out there, and now there's so many more resources, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future. I spent many years before my FCS was really exacerbated, living with symptoms that were misdiagnosed as other things. I had PCOS. A lot of the cyclical symptoms that I had were attributed to that. I in my early 20s had my first pancreatitis flare, but everything kind of went haywire when my son was born in 2010.
That's an understatement. Absolutely.
What do you remember about that time?
Chaos. No, so I had just brought we had just brought our 2-week-old baby. He had been home 2 weeks. And I found my wife on the floor, doubled up, couldn't move, writhing in pain, screaming in pain.
Yeah, it was a hot mess.
Yeah. Then we rushed her to the ER, put her in a wheelchair, wheeled her into the emergency room, and the guy goes, "Yeah, here, take this piece of paper. That's your number. We'll call you when you're ready." Meanwhile, my wife is pale, white as a ghost, and unconscious in a wheelchair. That was the first episode of I lost count of how many.
Yeah. Yeah, it was at that time my triglycerides were exacerbated with my pregnancy. A lot of women that have FCS have similar stories. Pregnancy is very difficult. For me, luckily, my pregnancy went well. I had a healthy baby boy, but immediately after was when things kind of spiraled, and it led to about a 2 to 3 year period where my triglycerides would go up 1,000 points every month like clockwork. Things started at around 2,000, and that was that flare that he's remembering and that I remember some of, not all of, because I was unconscious for a lot of it. But then the next month they were 3,000, then they were 4,000, then they were 5,000, all the way up to 10,000. My triglycerides went up to 10,000, and we didn't have any clue what was causing it or what. FCS wasn't even something that I'd ever heard of. Most of my doctors and care team at that time had never heard of. Um, this was around 2010. For about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, I spent 7 to 10 days out of every month in the hospital with a pancreatitis flare.
It's pretty jaw-dropping when the doctor walks in the room and says, your wife's triglycerides are so high that our machine couldn't count them.
Yeah. It was
Wow.
a cycle of hell, pretty much. And we had a new baby at home. My parents are amazing, and
Mhm.
thank God they helped with supporting us and helping out with taking care of the baby when he had to be at the hospital with me, or one of them would go to the hospital with me and he'd take care of the baby. And it went on for a long time. And then that led to a cycle of trying to figure out what's going on here.
Needless to say, I got really good at making bottles and then really good at getting the kid to eat the vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Just
did.
just saying.
He did.
Okay, just saying.
Then I would say I went through a couple year period of being a guinea pig. That was the best way to describe it. I had a lot of surgeries that were done in haste because the only thing that they knew was that my triglycerides were causing this. We have to stop your body from absorbing anything. So they tried a lot of surgeries that, in hindsight, were very, very detrimental to my health.
Mhm.
It completely debilitated me. I couldn't work. I couldn't leave the home. I couldn't do anything. I ended up, one of the things was that it was still very cyclical. Every time I would get my period, my triglycerides would spike up into the thousands and I would end up in the hospital with a flare. So when I was 34, I was 28 when I had my son. When I was 34, I had a radical hysterectomy. Because they thought, well, if we can remove that component of it, then maybe that would help. It helped for about 6 to 8 months. And then my triglycerides went right back up through the roof again. And that was getting close to the time where I figured out what it was all on my own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
She really found. I mean,
So you figured it out on your
she
own.
found her own
That's
diagnosis.
Yeah.
amazing.
When you're in the hospital as much and as desperate as much as a lot of patients with FCS are,
Mhm.
Google becomes your friend. You read medical journals. I took a class in anatomy and physiology and medical terminology college courses, so that the doctors couldn't talk over my head. So I would understand what they were saying. So
Mhm.
I could read my medical reports and understand what they were saying, because so much of it was, I'm being told this, but what does it mean? And it was done in haste. It was, do this surgery, otherwise you're going to be dead in 6 months. And as that, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I could say to anyone who's maybe found themselves at the beginning of this journey, just to save them from going down the path that I went down, is please learn to advocate for yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I want to do some more research, ask for a second opinion.
Absolutely.
Even the little things, when you're in the emergency room and they're telling you you're an alcoholic or you're drug seeking, and all the things that get told to someone because you have pancreatitis and they're not looking at the cause of it, demanding a triglyceride draw. That's not a standard emergency room test when someone presents with pancreatitis, and it really should be. Um, I don't know how many times I was told by doctors and nurses that, "Oh, you did this to yourself. Oh, you must be a closet case alcoholic." And it's so demoralizing, and it's so hurtful to someone who's desperate and just wants to be home with their family to hear that kind of stuff in and out. And just learn to advocate for yourself. It's so important, and don't be afraid to. You have the patient bill of rights for a reason. You have the right to adequate pain control. You have the right to talk to other doctors for an opinion and not just let them turn you into a guinea pig. Yeah. So, yeah, then I found out what it was because we reached probably the worst point in our journey. Um so my son was 6 years old, so this would have been around 2016. Um and he was run over by a car. He was life flighted to the trauma center to HCMC in Minneapolis, and sitting in the PICU, they came up to me and said, I should backtrack a little bit. At this point, I was having plasmapheresis treatments done up to 3 times a week to clear the lipids from my blood. Um, in hindsight, it wasn't very helpful because my body considered homeostasis as high triglycerides. So it almost created a worse rebound effect. So the plasmapheresis would take my levels down to about 4 to 600. And then the next day, they would slingshot back up to 2000. So it was creating much more intense cycles of pancreatitis flares. But someone came up to me when I was in the hospital with my son and said, you still have to have your plasmapheresis treatment. We don't want you ending up in a hospital bed next to him. And so I went for my treatment, and there was a new nurse doing my plasmapheresis because I wasn't at my normal hospital. And he said, "Oh, you have chylomicrons in your blood." I'd never heard the term chylomicrons before. I didn't know what that meant. I'd never had a doctor say anything to me. So that night, I was sitting in the hospital room next to my son, Googling, what is a chylomicron? How do I find out if I have these?
Mm.
What's the test look like? Um, Grace of God, our son walked out of there after 9 days. He had a grade 4 liver laceration. He had a fractured pelvis. It was bad. He was a mess. But God is good, and a lot of people were praying for him, and it was a miracle. Um, he was okay, and I came out with a new piece of information to bring my doctor. So I had a test for chylomicrons to screen my blood, and sure enough, they came back positive, and that kind of led me to my journey of putting the dots together, and I found a website that said mentioned FCS. Um, so that would have been 2016, 2017. I first found out what it was. Since that time, I've had genetic testing to confirm it twice. One of the tests confirmed it and one of them didn't because I guess my variant is very rare. They told me that there is only one other person in the world that they found with the same variant that I have. That doesn't mean that there's not more out there. It just means that they don't have the data on them, which is very likely because there's not a lot of data on us.
Right.
Um, So since then, it's been about managing. What can I do to manage it? Putting my foot down with my doctors and saying, quit throwing statins at me and fibrates and fish oils because fish oil is still fat. Very low fat diet. I stopped doing plasmapheresis because we moved our whole family down to Rochester area to be closer to Mayo Clinic. And within about 2 months, they blew my access. I had an AV fistula, and they ran it a little too high, and it kind of destroyed my access, which became a blessing because it slowed down that cycle of the highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. So it kind of allowed me to stabilize a little bit. And now I'm on a new therapeutic that's been helping me manage things, and life is looking a lot better. A lot better.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you say?
it was a 15-year journey, but we feel like we have somewhat of a grasp of where we can head in the future. Future was always foggy before. We didn't know if we needed to not go on a trip because we didn't know if there was adequate health care there. Couldn't go to the cabin because there's not a hospital for I mean, all recreational stuff aside.
It was consuming. Everything was our life was guided by that. You know, what kind of treatment might I need? Where would we
Mhm,
go? It was just, yeah,
mhm.
it was a scary time.
Mhm. So how has this affected, day-to-day life? I'm kind of thinking about diet and food and, special occasions and family meals and traditions. Would you be comfortable just sharing a bit about that aspect of the journey?
There's not really any room for like cheat days. Like we have to stay very
Right.
we have to stay very just strict to our meals that we plan for the
Hmm.
week, and the way that we approach shopping, and when we're out and about,
Yes.
we just always have to be conscious. um
And you learn ways to navigate that. So one of the things I do is I use an app to track everything I eat. Like everything that goes in my mouth, I track so that I can have a visualization of how much fat am I actually getting, because it's hidden in everything. And there's so many things that
Yes, it
we're
is.
told, oh, that's a healthy fat. But fat is fat when it comes to FCS. So even the healthy fats are
Yes.
not healthy for someone like
Or
me.
not. No.
Um, when I was really sick, it was really hard because I was just so focused on surviving that I wasn't really thinking about living. So I'd start to learn little ways. We'd go to restaurants and I'd have a panic attack. Like I'd go in the bathroom and have a panic attack because of looking at the menu and worrying about what I was going to eat. So one way that we found that helps with that is planning ahead. Nowadays, almost every single restaurant, probably every restaurant, has their menu posted online or on their Facebook page, something like that. So before we go out, I'll look at the menu and I will pick 2 to 3 things that I know would be safe, and that, I could ask them to make modifications to in the kitchen if I needed to, that wouldn't be too crazy, to where I would feel like a weirdo. But they would be safe, but I would try to do 2 or 3 so that when I got to the restaurant, I would still feel like I had a choice. It wasn't like, "Well, I guess I'll just get the chicken again." Um, I could choose from a couple different things, so that really helped because I wasn't going in blind and overwhelmed, and yeah.
Right.
So that helps,
Right.
packing our own stuff was a big
mhm,
thing,
mhm.
if we were going to parties
Hmm.
and stuff, I would bring a little lunchbox with stuff that I could have so that my son and my husband could still enjoy themselves, um and I'd always try to pack stuff that I liked so that I wasn't feeling like I was being robbed, especially on a special occasion. If it's just me at home, I can stick with carrot sticks and pretzels and. But when you're going out, it's fun to have options. You gotta treat yourself sometimes.
So looking back on this, what do you wish you would have maybe, I know this is not really the best question because, hindsight, as they say, is 2020. But what do you wish that you would have known or that, you know, could have been accessible to you in terms of, materials where that would have helped you more in dealing, with the diagnosis and just continuing day-to-day life? What types of things do you think would have been helpful that you didn't have access to or didn't exist at the time?
One of the biggest tools that I ended up with that I didn't have for the longest time, and then somewhere along the line, I figured it out, and it changed everything, was you remember my red folder?
The hospital folder. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had this folder and I kept it like on my nightstand. So if we were calling an ambulance or if I was getting rushed in, I could just grab it. And I keep recent lab results in there. I would try to keep it updated with my most recent set of triglycerides going back like the last couple months. But the golden ticket was my emergency room protocol letter signed by my doctor on hospital letterhead that said, "This person is coming in. She's not lying to you. She has a condition that's called FCS. This is what it is. These are the protocols for treatment." And it had protocols for pain management. It had protocols for ordering a triglyceride draw immediately. And it also said it doesn't need to be fasting. Just get a triglyceride draw. It had information about organizing my plasmapheresis. They would send someone to the hospital to do that and run me to try to avoid me actually being admitted. It was just, it was a lifesaver. Having that with me, and I think I had them scan it in my chart every single time I went in just to keep it like at the top, was so important because it validated what I was going through and it was a tool that was tangible. I can't recommend that enough. For anyone at any stage of the journey is just you have care team for a reason. Have them put their signature on it, have them help you come up with a list of what do you need when you're in the hospital so that you don't get stuck there for a week. And them following that was a difference between sometimes being there just overnight or being there for 7 to 10 days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as the wheel is reinvented and
Yeah.
I understand the continuity of care is a very important part of managing a chronic condition like this. This is for
And
sure.
I think
Yeah.
putting together a list of bullet points about FCS and lipid disorders and stuff like that that you can present to the care team at different hospitals is important.
Especially if something arises, you never know where you'll end up. If you're somewhere where they don't know you, they don't know what's happening, they don't know the situation. Many a times Julie was unable to describe what was going on, and if I didn't have the red folder, I would have been a mess. But I had the red folder; it was easy to present, and uh, uh, good for us. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but just being able to convey what's happening to you without being judged is probably one of the most important things I could say, uh, just from an outsider looking in, or from taking care of Julie and being with Julie as long as I have. That's huge.
Because stress is another huge trigger for triglycerides. I'm not sure what kind of data is out there on it, but there must be some because I used to tell him when we'd fight or argue, instead of "you're breaking my heart," I'd say, "Oh, you're breaking my pancreas." But you can feel it. um, Stress is huge. And when you're under that kind of stress and you're in the hospital, it's already a bad situation. But if people aren't listening to you, it just amplifies it. And it can be, I mean, it's not just a little uptick. I mean, you can literally add 1,000 points to your triglycerides out of nowhere, which is insane.
And it's not even like the hospital.
Right.
Like, a lot of times people are so sick that it's better for them to be at home instead of in the hospital, like, or in pain, to where it's more comfortable for them to be at home. Just little things that you can do for yourself that make those situations easier.
Yeah, and I was
are
horrible about that.
huge.
He'd be having to peel me off the bathroom floor before I would agree to go to the hospital. I was like, "No, unless I'm dying, I don't wanna go deal with that." Now I think that's been one of the best things is getting to a point where I can manage my flares at home. I can manage my care
But
enough,
you also know if it's
but I know when
that
it's
bad, it's
time.
time to go.
Yeah.
We don't even really have to have the
Right.
conversation. We just, yep, it's time to go,
You
Yeah.
know.
and we go. Yep.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. So what advice would you have for individuals who are newly diagnosed with FCS and they're feeling lost and they're feeling, a C? What would be your best advice to individuals just trying to cope with the diagnosis and sort of feeling overwhelmed? What would you recommend?
So outside of your local support system, which is so important, like if I didn't have this guy and I didn't have my parents, I know I wouldn't be here. Um, it's crazy to me to think about what I've put you through over the years, babe. And like, I mean, I was 5 months pregnant when we got married. So I mean, it was like right away.
Yeah,
You
freshly married,
just yeah,
newborn baby, and I'm a dad with at home, which
yeah,
should be like our honeymoon almost, and I'm holding our son while on the phone with
yeah.
someone making sure she's good in the hospital. Like just
Mhm. It was right
it
away.
was a wild thing, but
I'm sorry.
hey, we're here, so
I love you. But outside of your local support, like your family and stuff like that, there is a sea of support out there that
yeah, you're definitely not alone.
you're not alone, and find that. So for me, the National Lipid Foundation, the National Pancreatitis Foundation, that was my first clue, was the
Mhm.
pancreatitis, right? That was my main symptom, and that was what I was dealing with. So I found a lot of support and friends and advice in the different pancreatitis groups on Facebook. And then eventually I found the FCS groups, and they're there and they're alive and
Mhm.
they're thriving, and there no question is a bad question. You can find people in your neighborhood that are local to you that are dealing with different lipid disorders, not even just FCS, but other lipid disorders too. And
Yep.
y it's a wealth of information and support that is so important. That made a huge difference for me. When I was in the hospital away from my family, I could hop on to one of those Facebook groups and just be like, "Hey guys, I need a little love right now." Or ask questions. What recipes are working for you? What is something that you get when you go to this restaurant? What all the things, all the different things. It's just there's a community out there. You are not alone, and just because it's rare doesn't mean that it is, I don't know, a desert. It's not a desert. It's just a lack of dessert. That was that was cheesy, but that's okay. That's okay. But
Mm,
yeah, the support groups are huge.
wow.
Mhm.
Nowadays, it's really neat to see some of the resources that are coming from some of the different companies that are developing different therapeutics and stuff. It seems to be very
Mhm,
patient centric.
mhm,
And I think when you're dealing with rare disease community, that's so important,
Mhm.
because a lot of us patients are very, very jaded. We are battle worn, we are tired, and there's not a lot of trust in the community, right?
right.
Like,
I
yeah,
can see
and
that.
rightfully so. Like I mean, I was sliced and diced every which way. Yeah. And so that kind of trust building is important, and I'm seeing that from these places, and it's cool. It's cool to see. It's cool to see the resources that are coming out and being put out there for the patient, to be able to have the conversations with your doctor, to be able to find mental health support, to be able to navigate the diet and what that looks like. It's so important, and it just makes the journey, it takes the load off a little bit, makes it a little more easy to bear and navigate, because it's not just, everything doesn't have to be from scratch. Someone's already been through it before, so let's share that knowledge. Let's see what
Yep,
we can learn from each other.
absolutely.
So, Gary, I'm just going to turn this a bit over to you to, if you're comfortable, to share with us from the perspective of the caregiver, what has this journey been like for you? And what supports and resources have you counted on in your role as a caregiver and a partner of someone with FCS?
For me, it just really wasn't an option. I mean, you wouldn't think anything would
Sure.
happen like this. I had no idea that FCS even existed. But you get married, you find the love of your life, you have a kid, and 2 weeks later things start to go south. I didn't panic or run. I took it head on. I mean, whatever it needed to be, wherever and however I was needed, that's just how I tried to adapt to it. I tried to learn as much as I could along the way.
He didn't panic in front of me, at least.
I had to, I loved, grilling burgers and brats, but, it was okay to not do that as much, just so that my wife didn't feel like she was having to be singled out or special. Just, I really didn't think about it. It just kind of happened. Like it was the situation I was in, and I just went with it. Holding my wife's hair when she's being sick in the bathroom, or running her a bath when she needs to just soak, things like that. That was fine. And it was I never wanted her to feel like it was a burden on me, because it wasn't. It was just something that we had to deal with. And I'm not perfect. Sometimes the stress did get to me, but you know almost 20 years later, I'm still by her side and I'm still here. So it, I wouldn't take any of it back. If there was one thing I could take back, I would just want her to feel less pain and not be in the hospital as much, and be able to enjoy her son when he was real little, a little bit more than she got to, because she was in the hospital all the time.
Although
That was the only thing I would take back.
I will say that ended up being a blessing in disguise, because like now we both work. We're normal, lower to middle class family, just trying to survive. But when I was really sick, I couldn't work. So I got to be home with my son when he was young, which now in hindsight, I am so grateful for. I'm so grateful for that time that we had and the relationship that we built. Him seeing me go through those things now, he's a 15-year-old boy, and he's just he's more empathetic than a lot of kids his age. He understands more. He's got old soul, and he's been through more than a lot of kids have. But I think our whole family dynamic is we're a lot closer than a lot of people, just because of going through those things. I mean, in our first 10 years of marriage, we went through more than some people go through in their entire marriage, and we learned to support each other through it.
We definitely put on more ambulance miles and hospital stays than most people.
Yeah.
Just gonna definitely gonna put that one out there. But
Yeah. It'll learn to support each other.
Mhm.
Because even though I was sick, he was going through it just as much as me. It's
It's there's always another day that you have to just get ready for. I mean, that tomorrow comes, and it's just kind of how I look at it.
yeah.
Well, it's incredible to hear you speak of this in such a way that, for people listening to this, can't help but be inspired by your courage, your determination, your commitment to each other, to to your son. It's just a wonderful thing, and that kind of courage, and at the same time, seeking the knowledge you needed, both of you, to embark on this journey. And you look great, you look happy and healthy, and it's you should be very, very, very proud of yourselves for what you've done and what you've accomplished. And I'm so thankful that you're willing to share your story, because it's very inspirational, for others. I know FCS is rare, but I also, there are people, out there with it, who I think, just listening to the two of you speaking, Gary from the caregiver perspective, Julie, of course, from, the patient, with FCS is just would be very motivational, I'm sure, and inspiring to people who are going through this journey, in various stages of the journey from the beginning to where you are now, and all the wonderful ways you found to make this work.
I would just want to say to all of them out there, anyone that might be listening, is don't give up. There is life on the other side of survival.
Absolutely. Even when you get that bad news, keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Don't stop.
I got my diagnosis, at first, I read what it was, and it's scary sounding. But it had a name. When you know what it is, when you know the monster you're fighting, then that means that there's someone else out there that's fighting this.
Absolutely.
That gives you hope, right? Because you know that if it has a name, then there's people that are working on it that are much smarter than me. Then there's other people out there that have this, and I'm not alone. And then you start to learn to navigate and to learn to live with it, not just
Against it.
survive, not against it, not fight it, and learn how your body works. And there is life on the other. So we've come so far from them then. And if even 10 years ago, if someone had told me that I would be working full time and, you know, enjoying life, and what we just bought a house this year, took me to my 40s, but I did it. you know, um, we did it. We did it. And you guys will too. There's hope. You're not alone.
Yeah,
And
just keep going.
yeah, just keep going. Yeah, be stubborn, be spicy. You gotta be.
Be spicy. I like that. Be spicy. But yeah, incredible, incredible. And I so greatly appreciate your sharing this journey. And I'm hoping that people listening to this will learn, they will derive from it knowledge, but also a tremendous sense of comfort that, just looking at the two of you, I mean, one can't help but be inspired that, there are ways forward. And you've just shown us, in this time that we've spent discussing this, how you have found the way forward. And it's incredible. And like I say, highly inspirational. And I really hope that people derive comfort, which I'm sure they will, from listening to your story and your journey and how you've managed. And look at you now.
Well, thank you. And thank you for putting these
Yeah.
stories out there, because that is such a huge piece of that puzzle for people. This is gonna let people know that they're not alone, and
Yes.
that's huge. That
Absolutely.
is big. That's life-changing work.
Yes. So I just greatly appreciate your willingness to share that and in that way help others to, come to grips with their own diagnosis. It's just really, really, really terrific. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having us and the opportunity. It's
Yes,
an honor.
thank you very much.
Thank you. And wishing you the best going forward. And just what can I say? Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.